Have you ever felt your peace ripped away by a simple look of contempt? By a thoughtless, unspoken word, as if someone, with a trivial gesture, pressed a secret button inside you and unleashed a hurricane? It's humiliating, isn't it? You feel your blood boil, your throat dry, your face heat up, and deep down, an almost desperate voice cries out, "Why does this hit me so hard?" What you may not yet know, and what could forever change how you react to the world, is that this anger exploding within you does not belong to the other person. It's not their fault, nor is it their control. This anger is a letter, written by the parts of you you've never dared to read, because it's not just about what they said, it's about what's already hidden inside, waiting to be seen. I know how it is. You swear you're fine. You wake up on a good day, believing nothing will upset your balance, and then someone says something rude, ignores you, or belittles your efforts. It's as if the flame lights itself, and you, in the heat of the moment, blurt out words you didn't mean to say. Then comes the silence, the regret, the uncomfortable question. Why did I react this way? It's easier to blame the other person, to think the world is full of toxic, rude, unfair people. But Carl Jung teaches us that it's not quite like that. He said that what hurts us so much isn't the other person's gesture or word, but the old wound it touches within us. He called it the shadow. The shadow is that dark cellar where you keep everything you don't want to see in yourself. The insecurities, the fears, the painful memories, the parts of yourself you once found unacceptable. When someone provokes you, it's not they who light the flame. It only lights up this basement for a second. And what you feel is the reflection of everything you tried to forget. And this isn't a weakness of yours. On the contrary, it's your great chance for freedom. Because the shadow, as Jung said, isn't a monster, it's a teacher. It carries all the lessons about yourself that you've been avoiding learning. Failing to look at it is dangerous, because until you know it, it directs your life from behind the wheel, and you think it's destiny. In his words, until you make conscious what is in the unconscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it destiny. And it's not fate that you lose your temper, it's a lack of awareness. I want to tell you about Sarah. She was one of those dedicated people, full of passion for what she did. One day, during a meeting at work, she proudly presented an idea, and she heard from a colleague, "This has been tried before, let's move on." Silence filled the room. Her face burned, her heart pounded. Inside, she screamed, wanting to defend herself, to prove him wrong. But for a moment, she took a deep breath and asked herself, "Why does this hurt so much?" Then she understood. It wasn't just about that meeting. It was about the forgotten girl, ignored at school. The teenager who felt her voice was worthless. The old fear of not being good enough. She saw her shadow there, exposed before her, and it was in that moment that she began to break free. That's what I want you to do the next time you feel anger rising. Don't try to hide it, or pretend you don't feel anything. Look at it like you're looking in a mirror. Ask yourself, what is this showing me about myself? Because each answer will illuminate a part of you that needs care. You don't have to be held hostage by your reactions. You can choose how you respond. That's where true peace begins. Not when the world changes, but when you understand that nothing others say or do can bring you down. If you already know your shadow and have learned to embrace it, this is the freedom no one can take away from you. Have you ever stopped to realize that between the offense and your reaction, there's a tiny space, a nearly invisible fraction of a second where everything can change? Most people don't see this space. They live as if they were puppets pulled by the invisible strings of instinct and anger. But this brief moment, so easy to ignore, holds within it immense power. The power to choose who you want to be in the world. Carl Jung believed that the secret to becoming imperturbable was not in eliminating external conflicts, but in conquering that inner space where your freedom resides. It's natural to react when someone provokes us. You feel the pressure in your chest, your heart racing, the words already on the tip of your tongue. But you don't have to be a slave to that first wave. When you become aware of this space between stimulus and response, you discover that you can take a deep breath, look at the situation clearly, and decide to act in a way that aligns with who you truly are, not with your wounded shadow, not with your inflamed pride. Jung said, "Between what happened to me and what I choose to become, there is a path, and it is my duty to walk it. It is on this path that his calm, his dignity, his silent strength resides." I remember a boy named Joel. He was a designer, always creative and kind. But inside, he carried a resentment that no one saw. One day, an old friend said in front of everyone, "Still into drawing? When are you going to get a real job?" The words were like knives. Joel felt his anger rise, his hands tremble. For a moment, he considered attacking back, humiliating his friend, proving him wrong. But something inside him reminded him, "Breathe." And in that small space, Joel chose to smile, thank his friend for his concern, and change the subject lightly. He later said that that moment freed him. He realized he didn't need to buy into someone else's narrative, that he could choose his own. That's what you can do too. There's a simple secret to conquering this space within yourself. A technique you can practice anywhere, anytime. I call it the 3-second pause. When someone says something that sets you off, when a look provokes you, stop. Close your eyes if you need to. Inhale slowly and count mentally. 1, 2, 3. That's it. These 3 seconds aren't magic, but they give you the chance to break out of automatic mode. They allow you to ask, what do I really want to choose now? And maybe you realize you don't want to return the insult. You don't want to fuel the conflict. You just want to keep your peace. This simple practice can completely change the way you see yourself. Because every time you choose to respond, rather than react, you reinforce who you want to be. You write your story consciously, not letting others write it for you. As Jung taught, no one can take from you what you've built within. So the next time you feel like you're about to explode, remember you are not what you've been made to feel. You are what you decide to do with it. Don't hand over the reins of your calm to those who want to destabilize you. Calmness isn't a gift for those born more patient. It's an achievement for those who dare to choose it. And if this resonates with you, if you feel like these words are shining a light in this dark place, stay with me on this journey. This transformation is just beginning, and together we can explore Jung's secrets even more deeply to achieve a peace no one can steal. This is a space to learn, reflect, and grow. So don't forget to sign up and join me on this journey. I promise to continue showing you that there's always room for you to be greater than your impulses, and it's within you. Have you ever noticed how even when you take a deep breath and choose not to react immediately, something inside you remains heavy, as if an invisible current is pulling you down? It's as if on the outside you manage to maintain calm, but inside a silent rage still burns, slowly consuming you. This is when many people give up, believing they will never be able to completely free themselves. But Jung taught us that it's not enough to contain the impulse. We must protect what keeps us at peace. It's not enough to simply take a deep breath when the attack hits. It's necessary to establish clear boundaries so that your energy isn't drained, day after day, by people and situations that feed on your serenity. How many times have you said yes when you wanted to scream no? How many times have you allowed other people's pain to invade your space, while you shrank to fit their expectation? You felt that way, haven't you? That feeling that, to be accepted, you must constantly sacrifice, give up on yourself. But there comes a time when you realize, there's no way to remain unfazed when you're letting the world overwhelm you. Carl Jung said that the process of individuation, this path to becoming who we truly are, requires the courage to separate ourselves from what doesn't belong to us. And that's what you need to understand now. You have the right to erect fences around your inner garden, not to keep the world out completely, but to prevent it from trampling on flowers that only you know how hard they were to grow. I remember the story of Mia, a strong, hard-working woman who always carried other people's pain as if it were her own. She was the friend everyone called late at night to vent. She was the colleague who took on the tasks no one wanted to do. She was the mother who never took a minute to take care of herself. She was smiling, but inside she was exhausted, resentful, almost invisible to herself. One night, After yet another call for help in the midst of her own already chaotic routine, she realized, no one is going to protect my peace for me. Either I learn to say no, or I'll keep disappearing a little each day. So she took a deep breath and replied to her friend, I care about you, but right now I need to rest. Can we talk tomorrow? That night, Mia felt something new, not just relief, but a spark of self-respect she hadn't felt in years. This is how it begins, one limit at a time, one unspoken, self-loving one. Because you weren't meant to be someone else's emotional dumping ground. You weren't meant to bear anger that isn't yours alone. Every time you set a limit, every time you honor your needs, you get closer to your true self. Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you really are, and to do that, you need to choose yourself. Even if it makes you uncomfortable, even if others don't understand, even if they receive disapproving looks or accusations of selfishness. The world will test your boundaries every day. It will ask for more than you can give. It will criticize you when you prioritize yourself. It will try to rip away from you what you've spent a lifetime building. But the truth is simple. There is no peace for those who live in invaded territory. So don't be afraid to build your fences. Don't be afraid to take care of your inner space, because only when you take care of your own peace can you truly offer it to others, without sacrificing yourself, without losing yourself, without anyone ever being able to take it away from you. Even when you learn to build your fences, even when you start saying no to what hurts you, there's still something that seems to slip through your fingers, because no matter how much you protect yourself, sooner or later someone will criticize you. And that criticism can pierce through all your defenses, like poison that goes straight to the heart. You've felt it, haven't you? That acidic comment, that veiled disapproval, that joke disguised as an opinion. It's like someone holding a mirror up to you and saying, look at what you are. It's not enough. It's hard not to react with anger. It's hard not to feel your blood boil. Because deep down, no matter how much you try to appear unfazed, every criticism touches an old wound, an insecurity that hasn't yet healed. But Carl Jung believed that the criticisms that hurt us most are those that illuminate parts of our shadow, those we ourselves try to hide. As he said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Criticism is uncomfortable because it's an opportunity. It's an invitation to look within and ask, why did this hurt me? Is there a grain of truth here? Or is it just a projection of the attacker's pain? I remember Alex, a young developer who thought he was doing well at work, until he heard from his manager, your code is sloppy. I expected more from you. The sentence was like a punch in the gut. He wanted to scream, justify himself, accuse them of injustice. But something inside him said, breathe. And then he asked himself, why does this hurt so much? Little by little, he realized that the criticism echoed an old fear of not being good enough, of failing. So Alex did something brave. He asked his manager what exactly needed improvement. She pointed out technical details, which he corrected. And most importantly, instead of seeing the criticism as an attack, he saw it as a lesson about himself. He turned a blow into growth. You can do this too. You don't have to swallow criticism as absolute truth, nor do you have to respond with anger. There's a middle ground where you filter out what truly serves you and discard the rest. This is the power of awareness. It's not about being immune to the words of others, but about not being dominated by them. The next time someone criticizes you, take a breath and ask yourself 3 questions. What of this is fact? What of this is just opinion? And what does it reveal about me? Sometimes you'll discover a wound that still needs tending. Sometimes you'll realize the criticism says nothing about you, only about the person who delivered it. This is the great lesson. It's not criticism that defines who you are. You are defined by how you choose to react to it. If you learn to use it as a mirror, as a tool for self-knowledge, it loses its venom. And when you do this, when you look at yourself with honesty and courage, you free yourself from the need to please everyone. You realize that you don't have to be perfect in anyone else's eyes to be whole in your own. If these words resonated with you, if at any point you felt that this reflection brought a little more light to your own shadows, then don't forget to leave a comment here. A simple gesture, like a like, may seem small, but it's also a way of saying, I choose to look within, because each choice is a step toward your true calm. And the world already has enough critics. We need more courageous people to choose peace. Even when you learn to turn criticism into a mirror and begin to consciously choose your responses, there's still a weight that often holds you back, the difficulty of letting go. Because even when you no longer react, even when you breathe and even understand the other person's reasons, resentments settle like stones in your chest. How many times have you found yourself reliving an old offense, a betrayal, an unfair word? You remember, feel the pain again, mentally rehearse what you should have said, or wonder why you were treated that way. This cycle of remembering, suffering, and reliving can last days, years, even a lifetime, if you don't have the courage to let go. This is one of anger's most subtle traps, the illusion that holding on to it protects you, that remaining hurt is a way of proving you were right. But Carl Jung taught us something profound. What you don't let go of doesn't bind the person who hurt you. It binds only you. As you hold on to the hurt, it becomes part of your own unconscious, taking up precious space that could be used for your peace, your creativity, your joy. It's as if each resentment is a thread tying you to the past, and each thread steals a bit of your vital energy. Jung said, I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become. This means your story doesn't end the moment someone hurt you. It continues, if you choose. But to do so, you need to let go of what's no longer yours. I remember the story of Emma, an artist who was deeply betrayed by a friend. This friend spread lies at work, undermined her reputation, and robbed her of opportunities. For months, Emma would wake up thinking about her friend, reliving the details, making plans for how she could get revenge or prove her innocence. But one day, exhausted, she sat down in front of a blank notebook and wrote, I won't carry you around with me anymore. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and imagined the hurt as a huge boulder in her hands. She imagined placing the boulder on the ground and taking a step away. This gesture didn't immediately erase the pain. It didn't undo what her friend had done. But in that moment, Emma felt a relief she hadn't experienced in months. For the first time, pain no longer dominated her thoughts. Letting go isn't about forgiving the person who hurt you. It's not about forgetting. It's about choosing to free yourself from the poison. Buddhism says that holding on to anger is like taking poison and waiting for the other person to die. Jung would say it's about allowing your shadow to slowly devour you from within. If you're stuck because of what someone did to you, do a simple exercise. Close your eyes and name what you're feeling. Anger, resentment, humiliation. Imagine this emotion as an object in your hands. A burning coal, a bucket of stones, a piece of heavy metal. Feel the weight, the heat. Then visualize yourself placing this object on the ground, or throwing it into the river, or releasing it into the wind. This practice doesn't erase the memory, but it shifts its weight within you. You begin to realize that you no longer need to hold on, that you can look back and say, I was hurt, but I'm not just hurt. I choose to move on. And here's the key, when you let go of the hurt, something magical happens. You regain energy, your body seems to breathe better, your mind clears, life starts flowing again, because nothing stuck in the past can make you feel light in the present. It's not weakness to let go, it's strength. The strength of someone who understands that true peace doesn't depend on someone apologizing or changing. It comes from within, when you decide that no one else will carry your chain. And when that happens, something within you aligns, as if finally your shadow and your light have reached an agreement. Because there is no full light without first traversing the darkness. You don't become imperturbable just by mastering your words or setting boundaries. You become imperturbable when you release what no longer fits within you. When you let go to make room for all that can still be. When you finally let go. When you decide to let go of the weight of resentment and not let the past continue to rule your days, something curious happens. A silence sets in. At first it feels strange, as if something is missing inside you, a void where once there was anger, hurt, and excuses to remain tense. It's at this moment that many people retreat, unsure how to fill this newly opened space. But it's precisely there that the next lesson emerges, learning to cultivate what strengthens you instead of what hurts you. Carl Jung said that to illuminate darkness, it's not enough to dispel it. You have to turn on lights, and the simplest, most discreet, yet profoundly transformative light is gratitude. When you begin to look at what remains, instead of dwelling on what was lost, when, even amidst chaos, you find a thread of beauty and cling to it. It's a practice, a new habit for the soul, and it's also one of the surest paths to remaining unfazed by the world. For a long time, after leaving his hurts behind, Joao felt restless, as if something within him was still unresolved. He no longer responded to attacks as before, no longer held a grudge against those who hurt him, but he still didn't feel true peace. Until one day, by chance, sitting on a bench in a park, watching the people, he noticed the sound of birds, the light breeze, the gentle warmth of the sun on his skin. And without realizing it, he murmured to himself, "Thanks." At first, it sounded silly, but that small word, a silent acknowledgement of what was still good, awakened a tenderness in him he hadn't even realized existed. Since then, Joao has trained his eyes to see small reasons to be grateful. They weren't grand achievements or dramatic turnarounds. It was the hot coffee in the morning. It was a smile on the bus. It was the pleasure of being able to close his eyes at the end of the day in silence, without a heavy heart. This shift may seem subtle, but it transforms everything. Because when you start focusing on the good, the shadow loses its power. Jung reminded us that we don't become whole by denying the darkness, but by becoming aware of it and integrating it. And gratitude is precisely that bridge. You look at yourself, see what hurt, acknowledge that it still hurts, and still manage to say, "And yet I am grateful to be here." Gratitude doesn't erase wounds, but it changes how you carry them. It's as if by noticing the blessings, however small, you become greater than the pain. Because as long as you only focus on what's missing, or who hurt you, your energy remains trapped there, in what can't be changed. But when you give thanks for what remains, you open yourself to the new, to what can still blossom. Many ask, but how can we feel gratitude when life seems gray? When everything hurts, that's precisely when it's most important. It doesn't have to be anything grand. All it takes is a moment of pause, and the choice to see. Because there's always something to see. Even your breath right now, this moment that's still yours, is already a reason to be grateful. You realize that nothing and no one can steal this choice from you. They can try to provoke you, humiliate you, criticize you. They can hurt you, disappoint you, but they can't stop you from deciding where to place your attention. And when you choose to see the light, however small, you become untouchable. And perhaps this is what Jung meant when he spoke of individuation. It's not about never feeling pain, but about learning to walk with it and still find beauty along the way. Gratitude transforms pain into learning and silence into peace. And over time, you realize you're no longer at the mercy of what others say or do. You are enough, you belong to yourself, and it's at this point that true calm stops being an effort and becomes a natural state. Not because the world has changed, but because within you, there are no longer any gaps for what doesn't deserve to bring you down. Because now, finally you understand that the greatest strength there isn't the one that builds walls outward. It's the one that cultivates gardens within. And every small gesture of gratitude is like a new flower blooming in that garden. Over time, as you begin to cultivate this inner garden, watering small flowers of gratitude and learning to let go of the heavy stones that no longer serve you, something curious happens. You begin to realize that what once drove you crazy no longer holds as much power. People remain the same, some kind, some rude, some critical, some indifferent, but their impact on you diminishes, like waves that lose their force before they reach the shore. And then a new question arises. inevitable for anyone who reaches this point on the path. What do I do with my own shadows, now that it's no longer just others that affect me? Because sooner or later, you'll realize that true peace isn't just about not reacting to others, but also learning not to punish yourself so much for being human. Because there are days when you'll still make mistakes, you'll explode, you'll feel wronged, and you'll hold grudges, even though you know you shouldn't. And on those days, it's easy to feel like an imposter, as if all your effort has been in vain. Carl Jung said that the longest journey is the one we take into ourselves. And this journey isn't straight, it isn't clean, it isn't quick. Sometimes you move forward, sometimes you retreat, sometimes you stop, but every step still counts, even if you don't realize it. I remember David, a man who had already learned to breathe deeply, to not be so shaken by provocations, to be grateful for the small details in life. He was proud of how he had changed. Until, on a particularly difficult day, in the middle of chaotic traffic, someone cursed him for an innocent maneuver. Before he knew it, David was fighting back, shouting out the window, feeling his heart pounding, his hands shaking. When he parked, he felt a huge emptiness and a familiar sadness. What was all this for? He thought. And then something different happened. Instead of judging himself, David took a breath. He remembered what he'd learned, that every outburst is just another opportunity to look within. And for the first time, he quietly asked himself, what is this reaction trying to tell me about myself today? The answer didn't come immediately, but calm gradually returned, along with a small sense of pride for not having completely abandoned himself in that moment. That's how it happens. Growth isn't a leap, it's a daily ritual of mindfulness. It's not about being perfect, but about remaining curious. Because every time you manage to transform a trigger into awareness, you illuminate a corner of what previously lived in the shadows. When you get here, you realize that all the other lessons we've covered, pausing, boundaries, letting go, gratitude, have been preparing you for the most important one: self-compassion. This is the final key to being truly unshakable. You are not made of only light, nor only of darkness. You are whole, and refusing to see one side is denying yourself. Jung said, one does not illuminate by imagining figures of light, but by making darkness conscious. This is what you do every time you choose to look within without judgment. Every time you admit it still hurts, but still decide to keep going. Every time you allow yourself to be human, even while trying to be strong. And when you share your small victories and setbacks, you help others realize they're not alone on this journey. Because we all carry a bit of that anger, that fear, that hope, that strength. So tell me, when was the moment you caught yourself reacting without thinking, but then managed to turn that into a learning experience? Or perhaps, when was the last time you felt truly calm, even in the face of chaos? Your words may be a reflection of someone trying to navigate their own darkness right now, and that ultimately is one of the greatest gifts we can give each other. Remembering that we're all trying to find our peace, one step at a time. When you begin to realize that every misstep along the way is part of the journey itself, something profound changes in your relationship with the world. By now, you've learned to observe yourself in moments of anger, to recognize the shadow, to breathe before reacting, to set boundaries, to let go of what holds you back, and to cultivate gratitude even on dark days. And you've begun to feel, even if only in glimpses, that you are greater than any provocation. But there's something few realize. The peace you've been achieving isn't just to be kept to yourself. There comes a point when it begins to overflow, almost unintentionally, reaching others around you. And it's at that point that you understand that being imperturbable isn't just an act of self-control. It's a gift you offer the world, even if silently. Carl Jung said that individuation isn't just about becoming who you are. It's also about integrating yourself into the whole, realizing that you're part of something bigger. And this becomes clear when you notice how your calmness changes the energy of a room. I remember a woman named Helena. She spent years feeling on the verge of collapse because of her impatient husband, her demanding children, and her critical boss. Little by little, she began applying the small practices you already know. She stopped to breathe, said no when necessary, let go, and cultivated gratitude. One day, after yet another heated argument between her children, she simply sat on the couch and remained silent, staring out the window, without raising her voice or getting lost in complaints. At first, no one noticed, but over time the children began to yell less. Her husband began to speak more softly, and their conversations became less harsh. When Helena changed, everyone around her began to change too. That's the beauty of it all, because when you become more aware of your shadows and more in control of yourself, you break an invisible cycle. You stop being reactive. You stop feeding the collective anger that seems to hover everywhere. You become like a calm lake in the middle of a chaotic forest, and just existing like this calms those who come near you. And that's when you start to see a pattern. Most people who try to hurt you are actually just projecting their own pain. Jung said that we project onto others what we can't see in ourselves. That's why the colleague who humiliates you probably carries within them a sense of worthlessness. That's why the person who rejects you may be struggling with their own feelings of abandonment. When you truly understand this, compassion is born. Not a naive compassion that accepts anything, but a lucid compassion that doesn't allow itself to be contaminated by the pain of others. You begin to look at those who attack you and think, this is about him, not me. And that doesn't make you indifferent. On the contrary, it makes you more present. Of course, there will still be times when you feel anger bubbling up. It's inevitable. But the difference is that now you don't have to get lost in it anymore. You already know it. You already know what it means. You've learned to recognize the signs and choose a different path. And this is liberating, because true imperturbability doesn't come from constantly striving for perfection. It comes when you fully accept who you are, light and shadow, and still choose to walk toward peace. You become capable of remaining whole, even in the midst of chaos, of remaining calm, even amidst the emotional storms of others, of remaining yourself, even when the world seems to be falling apart. And without realizing it, you inspire others to do the same, because your presence no longer carries the tension of someone ready to react to anything. Your presence becomes a silent reminder that there is another way to live. And when you reach this state, you realize that the greatest victory was not over others, nor over circumstances. It was over yourself. Because as Jung reminds us, encountering ourselves means, above all, encountering our own shadow. And you found it, and yet you kept going. And that makes you someone who can no longer be broken by small things. This is how, little by little, you become a beacon amidst a sea of turbulent waves. And even if no one says anything, everyone feels it. Because those who already carry peace within themselves don't need to prove anything to the world. They simply exist. And when you begin to exist like this, whole and silently steady, something even deeper emerges. You realize that your calm is not just a state to be protected. It is a calling. Because at some point you understand that being imperturbable in front of others is also being honest with yourself. And that, perhaps, is the hardest part. By now you've learned to breathe in the face of attack, to set boundaries in the face of abuse, to release resentment in the face of pain, to see light even in the darkness, and to empathize even with those who hurt you. But deep down, something persists, a certain discomfort within you. A subtle voice that asks, and me, what am I still cheating on myself with? Carl Jung warned us that dealing with the external world isn't enough. At some point, you need to look at your internal world and realize that we are often our own aggressors. Much of the anger we project onto others is a way of punishing ourselves for never having the courage to be who we truly are. It's at this point that the path deepens. Because you no longer seek to simply remain calm to avoid conflict. You begin to realize that true peace requires integrity, and integrity is having the courage to abandon the persona you've donned to please, to be accepted, to fit into other people's molds. How many times have you silenced your own voice just to avoid disappointing someone? How many times have you accepted a role that wasn't yours just to maintain harmony? How many times have you gone against your innermost values to avoid rejection? It's hard to face this, because for years we've been taught that being loved means being convenient, That being accepted means conforming to expectations. That being respected means giving in. But this comes at a price, and that price is peace itself. Jung said that individuation, becoming who you truly are, is painful because it requires letting go of your persona, that social mask you constructed to feel safe. It protected you for a time, but now it suffocates you. And every time you choose to please others over respecting yourself, the shadow stirs and reminds you, you're still betraying me. I remember Andre, a brilliant lawyer who was always seen as the exemplary son, the perfect husband, the trustworthy friend. He knew exactly what to say to be admired, to be liked. On the outside, he was everything everyone expected. On the inside, he was a minefield of anxiety, frustration, and loneliness. Until one day, standing in the mirror, he asked, "Who am I really, when no one is looking?" This question can hurt more than any external criticism, because it forces you to admit that often it's not the world that's against you. It's you who's against yourself. And then Andre began making small changes. He began speaking his mind even when it was unpleasant. He began declining invitations that didn't make sense to him. He began to acknowledge that he had dreams of his own, different from the ones planned for him. At first he felt fear of losing friends, of disappointing his family, of being seen as selfish. But then he realized that what he feared most wasn't the judgment of others. It was the silence within. That heavy silence of someone who has abandoned themselves. When you start choosing yourself, something changes. Anger diminishes because there's no longer the constant feeling of betraying yourself. Resentment dissolves because you no longer expect others to validate who you are. Criticism no longer hurts as much because you're no longer trying to prove anything to anyone. Inner peace becomes deeper because you stop fighting with yourself. And this is liberating. Not only because it relieves tension, but because for the first time you feel you can be yourself, whole, without needing to defend or justify yourself. This is the secret few discover. There is no true calm without authenticity. There's no point in holding back words, taking deep breaths, setting boundaries, letting go of hurt feelings, giving thanks, feeling compassion, if inside you're still lying to yourself. The most solid peace of mind arises when you are true to yourself, when your words reflect your heart, when your actions don't betray your values, when you look in the mirror and despite your imperfections, can say, "It is me." And perhaps this is the greatest way to be imperturbable in front of anyone. Not because no one else can touch you, but because no one else can take you away from who you really are. And when you finally reach that point, you understand that this entire journey, with every breath held, every limit imposed, every hurt released, every gratitude cultivated, every shadow integrated, wasn't about becoming unattainable to impress others. It was, above all, about returning home within yourself, about realizing that the peace you've always sought was never out there, in the actions of others, in favorable circumstances, or in the silence of others. It was always here, right here, waiting for you to claim it. This is a silent yet overwhelming awakening. You no longer feel the need to prove anything, nor to hide. You no longer fear rejection for who you are, nor do you exhaust yourself trying to fix everything around you, so no one gets mad at you. Because now you know that none of this is your responsibility. Your only responsibility is to care for what exists within, this secret garden that no one else can cultivate for you. Carl Jung said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And now you understand that this isn't just a pretty phrase for a bedside book. It's a daily, courageous, and transformative endeavor. And you've already started. You've already traveled paths that many people never dare to travel, simply because they prefer to blame the world rather than look in the mirror. You didn't. You stayed. You breathed when you could have screamed. You chose to look inward when it was easier to point outward. You acknowledged your shadow, even when it seemed frightening. You found light in places where there was only pain. You built walls where needed, and opened gates where it was time. And that's why you deserve to feel proud right now. Because the truth is, Most people will go through their entire lives without ever discovering they can choose to be unfazed, without ever experiencing this freedom you're beginning to feel, the freedom to not be defined by what they do to you, but by what you choose to do to yourself. This is where the transformation is complete, when you realize that even on the worst days, you never return to the same place you were before, because now you know how to breathe. You know how to see beyond the surface. You know that criticism reveals, anger teaches, hurt liberates when released, and gratitude always blossoms. You know that your essence cannot be diminished by anyone. And when you carry this certainty within you, you're not just calm, you're a beacon. You shine without needing to speak. You inspire just by being. Now close your eyes for a moment and think about everything you've overcome to get here. The moments you almost gave up, the times you thought you couldn't do it, and yet, here you are. There's enormous power in acknowledging your own journey. There's a quiet pride in knowing that every small choice has brought you to this moment. So if these words touched you in any way, if at any point you saw yourself in these stories, if you felt something stir within you, I invite you to share it. Like this video, so it can reach others who still need to discover this peace. Comment below what touched you most, what made you reflect most. Your story might inspire someone to take the first step. And of course, subscribe to continue this journey with us, because there's still so much to discover. You who have accompanied me this far are special. You are no longer the same as when you started, and I hope that when you look in the mirror today, you can see with more sweetness the person you are becoming. You deserve this peace. You deserve this quiet strength. And you deserve to recognize that you got this far on your own merit. What a privilege to have walked with you through these words, these feelings, these shadows, and these lights. What a privilege to have you here. May you continue every day, choosing calm, choosing yourself, choosing to be who you've always been, without letting anyone shake you. Because in the end, the greatest victory anyone can achieve is becoming whole and remaining whole, no matter what happens out there. And today, you are closer to that than you think.